Welcome to Wellness Wednesday here on CHLY and to Wisdom Wednesday over on the Chronically Driven podcast. Sandra Silva here with you again. And as always, I am looking forward to spending this time with you. So thank you for being here. Today's show is going to be all about expanding our awareness inward and outward and taking note of both what is seen and unseen. My guest today is Janette Martens, who, among many of her talents, is someone who is a Reiki practitioner, a photographer, and someone who shares her passion for healing and wellness, supporting our spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. Welcome to the podcast, Janette.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I'm so pleased to be here.
It is so fun to get together again and to have another one of our conversations. You know, I was sharing with you just before we hopped on here that I knew that we were going to be friends from the very start when I first met you, because when I came to your home, right at the door, at the entryway, were heart rocks. And then wouldn't you know it, you have a bowl of heart rocks on your coffee table. And it's just like, same girl, same.
Well, I guess we're just full of love, aren't we? And
full
we
of love.
Finding them. Yeah.
And when I posted a picture not too long ago about heart rocks, someone commented and go like, "Oh, are those ones that you actually find?" They were thinking when I was talking about heart rocks that I was purchasing them at the crystal store.
Oh, no.
No. We were on a walk not too long ago, and I was pointing out the heart rocks that were appearing. What is it? Why do you notice stuff like that?
Oh, I can't remember when I started finding them, but the more I thought about it, the more they just started appearing. And I'm always looking in nature. I mean, that's where I spend most of my time anyway. It's either in the sky or on the beach, and love finding treasures. But the hearts just, I found that maybe when I needed a little love, I would find that heart that would just give me a little boost, or I can only assume it's spirit just giving me a little nudge, or just we're here. I remember one day in particular, I'd been working at a seniors building, and there was one of my favorite men, George, had just been taken into hospital, and I knew he wouldn't be coming back to the residential facility that we were living in. And I was just walking the beach in Lanceville, and all of a sudden, every rock I saw was a heart rock. Yes. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even carry them all home. It was, every rock I saw was a heart. And so I can only assume there was angels around me that day, just,
That I love that. I love that story. It reminded me of something I haven't thought of in a really long time. And that when one of my cats passed away, very dear, sweet soul of a kitty cat, I was out for a walk like right after, and was really, really grieving and just feeling it. And I was at Piper's Lagoon, just walking along that strip. And that's not even beach walks. It's like the gravel path. But I kid you not, I like every few steps, I picked up and just like probably about 25 heart rocks all in a row. And and that resonated with just like, that's again, that's spirit giving that affirmation that we're never alone, and that all of this energy is around us. That's just so delightful. And I know it's something that I've been doing for years as well. And it just comes naturally. I don't even have to. It's not like when I go sea glass hunting, I'm actively searching, but the heart rocks, they just seem to show themselves.
And I think that has something to do with law of attraction too,
Absolutely.
And if you're in a loving vibration, you're just going to attract more love into your life, and those are symbols of love for sure.
Absolutely. Couldn't be more of a symbol. One of the things that is a very, very frequent theme on my shows is talking about not only just being outside, but being in and interacting with nature. And I mean, we've already even just started in on that. You said that's that's where you spend so much of your time. So, just the health benefits alone, just from being outside is amazing. But what I thought that would be really cool to talk about is having that heightened awareness, having that really notching up our powers of observation,
Uh-huh.
and then finding, just like you touched on a moment ago, mentioning the law of attraction, noticing that when we consciously choose to look for and notice things in nature, first of all, oh my goodness, there's so much to see. And then it
Yeah,
just and then we find that it just expands more and more.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think as we're raising in consciousness, the veil is thin. And so there's elementals and other spiritual beings that are
Mhm.
being made available to us now. And so there's just such a richness of treasures to be found. And it's super exciting. Yeah.
I was thinking that the amazing benefits that can be found from, again, being in and interacting with nature, and a lot of it, it's not woo woo stuff, it's documented, it's scientific. And
Absolutely.
over the ages, like in different cultures, forest bathing and being next to running or moving water, just the ions that are
Mhm.
picked up and everything like that. And knowing that just on its basic level there, but then thinking about on a spiritual level of what we can do, I became I became really concerned about, why is it in our world, the powers that be, the media and whatever, they're doing just about everything to keep us looking at a
Mm.
screen,
Mhm.
not being out in nature, being dependent on being shown things instead of
Exactly.
discovering and seeing for ourselves.
Exactly. It's almost like an act of rebellion to go out in nature
Yeah.
and breathe in the fresh air and feel the sun on your skin. I mean, yeah, we've been told to cover ourselves with sunglasses and
Mhm.
sunscreen, which is chemicals. We've been told to, cover up our third eye, which is where our intuition comes in. Breathing that fresh air, what better thing to do for our lungs than to breathe fresh air than stale air in a
Mhm.
home with recycled air. And yeah, just the wonder of nature and beauty is it just takes us to such a healthier frame of mind and mental
Yeah.
well-being.
Especially from being confined indoors. I think at one point you and I talked about how we're not such a fan of fluorescent lighting,
No.
right? And being in those closed and confined spaces, and that screen time, being always so connected to finding out whatever is going on, and even it's starting earlier and earlier, like really young children are being
Mm.
given electronic devices to soothe and to occupy their time. And so I'm hoping that we can sort of spark a curiosity for people to want to go and play in their backyards, to go and play in the park, to go down to the ocean, to go into what I've been so drawn to lately, go into a forest.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a toss up for me. Is it an ocean walk or a forest walk? Because they both have so much abundance, when you experience
Totally.
them. Yeah.
And we are we're pretty blessed, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a humble brag here. We can get the ocean and forest experience
In one
anytime
walk.
we want. We live on an island.
Yes.
We're both here on mid Vancouver Island, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. So yeah, that's sometimes there's so many places that are just popping into my head right now where you can get both right at the same time. So we don't
True. Yeah.
we don't have to pick. I think I get the ocean, I find, is such a powerful force, and the forest is powerful too, but it's also so calming and just
Mm-hmm.
quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The power of the ocean and the healing powers of water
Mm-hmm.
are certainly important to our well-being. But yeah, the extra oxygen that
Mm-hmm.
the trees create give
Yes.
us almost a high, and yeah, a closeness and a comfort,
Mm-hmm.
you know. a warm embrace.
Yes.
So,
well, like a comfort. And I like to get a little personal and get a little up close and cozy with the trees sometimes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, I'm a tree hugger in the
me
not
too.
in the aspect of it being in that meaning any sort of a lifestyle, but meaning I actually go and I hug those trees.
Well, those trees are conscious beings,
Yes.
and they offer wisdom if we can tune into their language, and they're amazing. I mean, they have so many human aspects, really. You know,
Yes.
that they live in families and they support each other,
And
and
the communication recently that's been coming up about just studying just like the mass communication that they do within themselves. And then you think of a tree and the roots of the tree and all of that kind of stuff. It's so
they have their own internet, right?
yeah, right. I was really fascinated when we were going for our walk, and we're looking and we're noticing things, and the topic came up that another one of the things that you and I have in common is we have an affinity for being able to notice faces within
Oh, yeah.
things such as trees, not just trees, but let's stay with trees for a moment. And I find that so intriguing.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, when you have the eyes to see it, you
Mhm.
just see them all with their personalities and their characteristics, and
They're
magical.
they are, and they have there's something I was looking up just before we started to record this, and reading about what the term that is actually referred to as tree wisdom, and talking to and communicating with trees, and that goes back very much so. It's common in shamanic practices, like they really have that connection. And the aspect of being able to recognize faces is something that is also it's a human trait. Our brains are wired to recognize the human face. And then when you take that a step further and you start to have your awareness to actually see those faces in the trees, which are of course very individual to that tree, but then you can also see them in other things like in rocks or in clouds and things like that. And the having, again, I keep saying the word awareness, but when you start looking for that sort of stuff, you're going to be amazed at just how much you see it.
Exactly. Yeah, then you start seeing it in absolutely everything, and it just
Yep.
is nonstop.
It's the
And
same sort of ideas. Like, you get a new maker model of a car, and then you start seeing that on the roads. Well, it's that same sort of idea. And whether that's, is that energy responding to us or whatever it is. But I find it really, really fascinating. I find it almost magical. And I look for that, and I find that it's a really enjoyable practice. Janette, you are a photographer and you do a lot of nature photography. So I was thinking that in of itself makes you being a keen observer.
yeah.
What are some of the things, like your pictures they're beautiful, but they go a little bit beyond that. They have, like, you have things that you can see and be seen in them, and also things like light code energy and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about your photos?
Right. Well, I guess the longer I've been on my spiritual path, you start learning about what you're actually observing through others' descriptions of it. With the cameras that we have today, like even our cell phones, we're picking up very colorful prisms and rainbows and that kind of thing. But what that really is light codes coming in from the sun. And light codes are actually wisdom or knowledge that are being embodied in us and actually changing our DNA. We're going through a massive shift right now of consciousness, and if people aren't sure what that means, it means that we're going through a point in human evolution where we're kind of taking a quantum leap and changing quite a bit. So those light codes are the process in how we are shifting and raising our vibration. So I see those coming in, and the colors are beautiful, and that in itself is just magic to me. But there's different patterns and things that show up too.
Mm-hmm.
And I only wish I knew and understood more of what it is. But sometimes I see kind of celestial beings within those codes as well. And so that's an interdimensional aspect of what I see when I take pictures. Yeah, in clouds, I think there's a lot going on in the other realms around us, and we're being able to see those more. And so there's a lot of dragon energy around. So I pick up a lot of pictures of dragons lately. Characters, animals. I've been picking them up for quite a few years, actually, in my photos. Rocks, trees, driftwood.
Yes.
Everything kind of shows itself to me in an unusual way. And then when I share it with others, more people are able to see those beings or faces as well. So that's pretty cool.
And in the example of taking pictures of the sky and of the clouds, do you always see with your eye what you're seeing, or are more things revealed when you actually look at the photograph?
I would say more once you look at the photograph, but I seem to have a sense of certain cloud formations are going to reveal particular things in them now that I've been, observing for quite a few years. More than not, I will see things and then I'll tweak them with a little bit of tone change, and it'll bring out stronger aspects of something. And then of course you can zoom in and crop and that kind of thing. And it kind of brings the picture to life more. So yeah.
I know I've had some really fascinating results from some photographs that I was taking of a particular tree that I would park beside and would have these conversations. And it was leading up to the time before my father's passing, and then shortly thereafter. And I'm not sure what initially drew me to take the pictures when I was there, but then I started noticing on that these different light code messages would show up in those same trees, and I took enough of them to dispel that it was a reflection or anything like that. So some of them, most of them I couldn't see just when I was looking. I would only see after when I would look at the photographs. But those remain really, really special to me because they're looking at them. And I haven't thought I'd actually love to show them to you sometime and see if maybe you could
see them,
like enhance them, like some of the things to bring up and accentuate some of the, and it was always this, and it's always when I connect with this energy, it's always the same tones of purple and green that come up in the into the tree.
So you know what those colors mean? Connected to chakra.
Well, okay, right.
So green is heart, and purple is crown. So that's a lot of information right there, just based on the colors that you were seeing. You were probably very much in your heart thinking about your dad, and then having that higher connection to source through the crown. That was a lot of what was going on, and probably bringing you into awareness of the magic of nature. So,
and I find this is something when you start looking for and discovering and getting, and I always like to say it's not like having a curiosity. When you start having a curiosity for these things, being out in, again, going out for that a nature walk or something. I know for me personally, I do that as a form of self-care. And sometimes when I've got something that I need to work through and stuff like that, and I find that nature, Mother Nature, Gaia, this beautiful universe, is so supportive.
Oh,
And
yes.
like and then so there's oftentimes we say there's no such thing as coincidence, whether it's divine timing or just the synchronicities of right when a thought comes in to right at that moment you see, hear, or feel something that is kind of, again, I'll say it feels very supportive.
Oh, completely. I think we experience that too when an animal crosses our path, like a live animal. If you're having a thought about something and then an eagle flies overhead, they all have their own totem meanings. And, so an eagle flying overhead might mean take a bigger perspective, higher perspective on the situation, or rise above the drama, or there's plenty of messages that they have, and that's how I live my life too. Every animal that crosses my path now has a message for me, and I'll seek out the meaning and see what's pertinent to me and what I'm meant to learn or understand about something. We had that lovely frog jump in our way the other day, and right at a pertinent moment. Yep. And fertility, new beginnings, transformation, lots of beautiful messages that Froggy provided for us. So I love that.
I love that too. And it felt like a gift that that was just for us at that time.
Completely.
I think we were also, when we were chatting about that, there's an awareness. So people that are going along on their spiritual journey and their awakening process, they tend to discover that they have a real draw to and from and with animals. And a lot of that is, it feels like it's being magnified a little bit right now.
Yeah. Well, I think as we're raising in consciousness, our levels of compassion and our heart centeredness is growing exponentially. And so it just reaches out to all sentient beings. And I think the animals are raising compassion, and they're being drawn to us almost magnetically. I find little birds are just, almost on my fingers now, and butterflies are landing on my hand, and it's like, wow, there's something shifting and changing, but they are changing too. And it's just like this big love-in where everyone is just living out of their heart more, and so that's what we're seeing. And what I was going to mention too is when you were talking about just being curious, also just being childlike is so important too. I think a lot of us are going through a healing journey and tapping into that inner child that needs healing. Nature also provides the perfect opportunity for that too, to just play and explore. I think so many children today have been kept inside because there's so many fears about the big bad world that have been instilled in them and their parents. It's just kind of forgotten how much we need nature, and nature needs us. Yeah.
And there's something, I know personally, I'm not a gardener, but I know that you do get your hands in that earth and are
weeding. Oh, sure.
I hear from so many people that connection, not only you can get lost and do it for hours and hours, but it's like a therapy.
Well, it's very grounding. And so when we are anxious and, in our heads a lot, the best thing to do is get into the ground, literally. And I think that's why animals or dogs love their walks, because they're grounding all the time. Their little paws are on the earth and they're happy. And we need that magnetic energy for our well-being. So when we can do it ourselves, go barefoot, it's the best thing we can do for ourselves. and I'll just sit at the beach, just drop my shoes immediately,
Yep.
put my feet into the gravel, the sand, on the logs, whatever. And you just are able to just get into a calm state very quickly.
So that's something that's important to remember for anyone if they are going through a period where they are feeling really stressed out, feeling like there's a lot of pressures in their world or the world or whatever, that it is so accessible. And what I like about this is some, let's say you're in an anxious state, and I can speak for just from my personal experience. When we're feeling that way, we want relief. We want to switch that state, because being in prolonged chronic agitation that's where illness comes from. So when we are in that state, this is the opportunity where we have choice of what, if anything, would we want to do about that. And some of those choices may be to just push it away, damp it down, don't deal with it. Don't recommend that one. Nope. Another one could be to reach for some sort of substance to help, whether that be a cup of tea, to a cigarette, a glass of wine, or some prescription process. That's a choice as well. But what I've experienced, and so many of others have as well, is that you can take your human body and your human state of whatever that may be, go out and be with and interact with the earth. And it's really hard to.
It doesn't cost a thing.
It doesn't cost.
It's available to everyone.
Yeah.
And it can be purposeful too, and you get satisfaction with a job well done. If you've weeded a garden like I did for 3.5 hours yesterday, got rid of lots of grass and 5 bags worth, and a sense of accomplishment as well. And I think when we're not feeling well, we can start feeling sorry for ourselves and live in a victim mentality of, why me, poor me. But the garden and nature has always been myself for everything. And I've had some lonely times the last few years, and I never feel alone when I'm out there. There's bugs and fish and starfish and trees to keep us company. So it really is the best tonic. And I just kind of love Einstein's quote about how to live, and that's, you think nothing is a miracle or everything is. And for me, everything's a miracle. And so I live in this childlike awe every day.
That right there, that is another really good suggestion, recommendation, is to have that expectation that you're going to be delighted, you're going to stumble across something amazing, and to, again, what we focus on expands. Law of attraction, what we are drawn to is drawn to us, like attracts like, all of that kind of stuff. So we have that choice in any given moment, which seems again to be a running theme on the show lately, is you can choose to have that childlike fun expectation of every day being a magical adventure, and it kind of sets the tone for that.
Oh, absolutely. And,
you know what I like as well is, and I'm not always cheery and upbeat and happy, but I have that curious and that delight, and try to do that ripple effect. There's been so many times over the past couple of years when I go into a grocery store or whatever, and the standard question, how are you? How's it going? And I always say something along the lines, it's usually about, I'm doing super good, thanks. How are you? And the amount of times that it takes people, they weren't expecting that.
Yes.
And then it breaks through, and it's like, 'cause a little bit of humor, a little bit, and then it's like, oh, okay. So it's okay to be having a super good day. So it's okay to be feeling that life is fantastic. And then that smile turns into their next transaction. It's that whole that whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful to just change it up a little bit, and then people respond, and yeah, you just can make their day and get them out of, I mean, everyone's always in their head, so anything you can do to just shake that up a little bit, it's a good thing. Yeah.
And that's how each individual person can have such a profound impact. The butterfly effect, or whatever,
Absolutely.
ripples in a pond. I mean, it's just like all of us, as we start going into the summer months and being outside and doing that, if we believe in, even in a small way, that there is, that what we focus on is what we bring into our world. My goodness, some of us need to do a better job, because there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. And I mean, like stop it, like stop creating that sort of a world. Been involved in a lot of conversations about talking about, well, how do we recreate a new world, a new way of being, a new earth that we want to be a part of, and one person at one thought at a time.
Oh, I feel really passionate about that. I mean, I really do choose to guard my energy and not watch the news or be involved in what the narratives are out there. I'm here to support others when they're not doing so well. But mostly I guard my energy, because I think the most impactful I can be is to be a light for others. We don't, or have never understood, how powerful we are in just how we can create a ripple effect of positive energy. And so the way I feel I can be most impactful is to really stay in my joy and create that in my life daily, so that I can be a beacon of light to others. And yeah, things are shifting and changing, and I don't want to think about the old way of doing things, the old earth. I want to create the new earth. So what do we want it to look like? And so that's where we should be focusing our thoughts and energy, because our thoughts can be made manifest so quickly these days that I was talking with my sister this morning, who's feeling very fluey right now, not well at all. And I said with a laugh, I think you just manifested this being at home. You were telling me how tired you were at work, and you couldn't wait to get home and rest. And I said, here you are. Now you have to rest. You're in bed. And she said, you know what? You're right. I said, you got to be really clear about your intentions, or because everything's manifesting, but very quickly. So yeah, what we speak, those are spells, and we want to have good spells for a beautiful life. And I live in the realm that we are anchoring heaven on earth right now. And that's why what I see in the clouds and in nature reflect that back to me: beauty and color and imagery. And so that helps me know I'm on track with my thoughts and how I'm living my life.
And language and words are so important. What we speak, what we put out there, and our thoughts. And it starts with ourselves, with our self-talk and our self-messaging.
Definitely.
And that sometimes, I know a lot of people sometimes struggle with put downs, or not speaking in a loving and caring way to or about themselves.
That's where it does start. I mean, I think we're our own worst enemy a lot of the time. And if we knew how beautiful and perfect we are and how powerful we are, we would never speak to ourselves the way we do. And another way to think about it is, how would you speak to a child? Would you tell a child that they're stupid or failing? We have to really take care to be kind to ourselves. And self-love means when we love ourselves, then we can love others. And again, that's another way that we can create a ripple effect in the world. So it may seem selfish that we're doing all these things for ourselves, the salt baths and the walks in nature and the meditation, but really that truly is the greatest thing we can do for ourselves and for the loved ones in our life.
Absolutely. It is so true that if we're not showing up for ourselves in a really loving, caring, and nurturing way, the chance of that being able to be our best self in our other relationships is, it makes that effect. That's why I am so protective over my mornings. The sacredness of a really intentional, quiet start to my day really helps set me up
the
for
tone for the day. Yes. Yeah, I think we're shifting out of old paradigms of thinking too, that, busyness was a badge of honor we wore, and juggling, so many tasks and duties, and going to a job that we couldn't stand was somehow a badge of honor. But I think that fortunately is shifting, and self-love really is the key to all of that. We can really truly be our best self when we have taken care of our own needs first. It's like the story of the mother on the airplane having to take the oxygen first so that she can see to her baby in an emergency.
That's right.
You're no good to anyone if you haven't taken care of yourself first. So,
and it is important to develop those sorts of things on a daily practice. But it is really, really essential as well if we are having a challenge, if we are going through a difficult period, or we're having some sort of illness or something that we are experiencing in our physical body, by being really, really honoring that we need to take a break, that we need to slow down, that we need to take that time, it's really essential. And I think you're right. I'm recognizing that there is sort of a shift in how people are perceiving the hustle, go after it sort of culture and wanting to replace that with a slower, more intentional way of being.
absolutely.
So with everything that is going on in our current place and time right now, have you been noticing or hearing about anything kind of interesting going on in the skies up above?
Well, I've been drawn to the skies in the last year in a different way. I see lights in the sky that are not stars. And so I've come to learn that we have a lot of galactic spaceships surrounding us. There's a lot of galactic help here for us as we shift humanity. And the more I learn about them, the more intriguing it is, because I think we're going to have some disclosure around that very soon. There's Pleiadians and Arcturians, and these are all beautiful races of beings that are actually part of our DNA. We're spiritual beings having the human experience. So spiritual beings means we've come from other places to be here now. And so there's a lot of beings that are helping us and encouraging us. And as we learn about who we are, that's part of the disclosure as well.
And is a lot of this contributing to the higher levels of the energies that are being recorded and found?
Yes. Well, I think the sun has a large part in that. So I follow something called the Schumann resonance, and it's a chart that shows the spikes of electromagnetic energy. And it's really called the heartbeat of the earth. And so a few years ago, the consistent hertz that the earth BTAT was about 8 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started noticing larger spikes, and it shows up as like white peaks
Mm-hmm.
in the chart. And they often correspond with how people are feeling in their bodies. And so it's called ascension symptoms that we experience when the earth is peaking in a higher electromagnetic way.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, actually the last few days, it's been peaking very high. So as I said, 8 hertz used to be about the average, and it's been about 117, 118.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard that people are experiencing pain, headaches, nausea, vertigo, ear ringing. These are all typical signs of when there's a frequency change. We can go to our doctor. I know for myself, I had something that felt like terrible strep throat, and I went to the doctor about it, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me.
Mm.
And so what I learned about that is actually my throat chakra was being worked on, activated. And it's things that we don't necessarily know about or hear about very often, but we probably will more because
Mm-hmm.
collectively we're experiencing those things. Yeah,
And that's something that I've been hearing and seeing quite a lot more recently, talking about the Schumann resonance and seeing the different spikes. And this is an area where I have become curious to explore and to learn more about it. And I think the more that we have an understanding of how those things do and can affect how we physically feel in our bodies, and that when there are really big shifts of energy going along, that like you say, we
have an explanation for it.
Mm-hmm.
And also
Yeah.
I find that it happens mostly around new moons and full moons. There's certain portal events that happen on a monthly basis, a lot of cosmic events that are happening, astrological events. There's so much more to what's going on, to the unseen eye, than we could ever possibly imagine. And I don't proclaim to know all of it at all. I do know there's something so much greater at work than what we'd have been led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've been hidden from a lot of that purposefully, just so that we didn't know who we truly are, and that we are these cosmic beings first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
how powerful we are. Yeah, it's such interesting times we're living in. And
It is. And I have come to really have connect the dots with all of this. And again, going back to our original theme, which is being with the earth and the trees and the elements there as a way to support us through these transitions and changes. And I just think that for me has become a healing modality of something that I utilize. I know if I don't get my nature doses, I start to feel that. And I think that especially because we're surrounded also by a lot of electronics, like right now we're recording this. And so getting a break from that, I think, is also really, really helpful and supportive for everything going on inside.
Very disruptive to our well-being. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies have to work really hard to fight the toxicity in the foods, the GMOs, the pollution in the skies, and EMFs, the electromagnetic frequencies of
Mm-hmm.
televisions and radios and phones. Yeah. So I mean, we're obviously very resilient because we're bombarded daily
Mm-hmm.
by so much toxicity, but yet we still can thrive. And our bodies are always striving for that equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I really think that our bodies do have an innate knowing of how to heal, repair, and restore. And sometimes we just have to get out of the way and allow that to happen.
Mother Nature is the greatest healer there is. And
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Mother Nature is so supportive and such a good healer, and that's also why we want to take care of her as well. And I
Mhm.
remember listening to an Eckhart Tolle YouTube thing once talking about how blessed the flowers are when we stop and tell them how beautiful and glorious they are,
Mm,
that there's a response of with that we get from nature that also nature gets from us. And
it's
so
because everything is consciousness. They have their own consciousness, and they
exactly.
can respond to kind words
Well, I think we've who's not seen that example of the two plants. One is spoken to loving in kind
yes.
words, and the other is, you know, dissing it all the time. And there is, you can see that. So I think as we've been talking today about all the wonderment that is out there that we can benefit from, that it works both ways, that our we can also be supportive to the living things in and around this world, connecting with those animals, connecting with the beautiful trees, the messages in the clouds, and it works. You start getting that synergy going, and then it's sort of like you know a an infinity symbol of being
Mhm.
supportive back and forth. And you know, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's one of the simplest and easiest things. And I think having that, again, like we've talked about a few times today, that curiosity, that
Yeah.
adventurous, childlike desire to go out and interact in our world, and it's so reciprocal.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, nature is the greatest healer,
Absolutely.
and yeah, it's a wonderland.
So what are some of the things that you're looking forward to doing over the next as we get into our summer months here on the island? Do you have any destinations in mind?
Not at the moment, but I certainly am hoping for some day trips. I mean, there's just so much beauty
Hmm.
here to discover, of course,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and just the pleasures of summer are berry picking, and I love to make jams
Hmm.
and contain those summer memories as long as I can.
Hmm.
But of course, lots of photos.
Lots of photos, and
Yeah,
yeah, and lots of getting our feet into the sand and on the earth. And you know, there's a lot to be experienced, and I encourage everyone to take photos outside as well. You
hmm,
don't have to be consider yourself to be a photographer to start taking those pictures, and especially if you see something unusual or curious.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
were mentioning, you just might find you might see something different than what
yeah.
your eye could see. It might appear different in those photographs. Janette, you have a real talent for taking photographs. I would think that there are some images that others would really benefit from taking a look at. Did you want to let people know where they can find? Not only that, we didn't at all talk about your Reiki services or anything. I really we're just for here with our nature chat basically. But where can people find out a little bit more about you and see some of your beautiful photography?
Well, I do have a website called Sacred Light Photography and Healing.com. It's all one word. And
Okay.
I've got a little bit of a gallery of some of the photos on there. I also post many on Facebook. And so if people want to connect with me that way, I do print up photos on canvas and sell those. And yeah, I hope to expand that in a bigger way at some point as well. So
Lovely. Well, I will be sure to put those links into the show notes as well, so that you can check that out and see a little bit more of what Janette does and some of these photographs. And I know I'm going to be looking up more into the sky, into the clouds, and seeing things. And I encourage everyone to be playful and just to get outside.
Absolutely. There's magic everywhere.
There is. We just have to go and look for it.
You
Janette, this
bet.
has been lovely. Thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope that we can do this again and have another conversation.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank
It's
you.
been fun. Thanks.
Well, that wraps up another show. I will be back in 2 weeks' time, and until then, I am wishing you wellness.